Have you ever noticed how certain people do not merely affect your mood, but seem to distort your inner clarity itself? After speaking with them, your thoughts feel heavier, your confidence quieter, and your sense of direction strangely weakened. Nothing obvious was said, no direct attack occurred, and yet something essential inside you shifted. Carl Jung believed this experience was not coincidental. He argued that the most dangerous individuals are rarely those who act with open hostility. They are those who operate from the unconscious, unaware of their inner contradictions, yet powerful enough to impose them on others. Today, we will examine 6 psychological types Jung warned us to recognize and, when necessary, avoid. Not as an act of judgment, but as an act of psychological self-preservation. The first type is the chronically unconscious individual. This person has never turned inward long enough to examine their motives, emotions, or responsibility. In their inner narrative, they are always justified, always misunderstood, always the victim of circumstances, people, or fate. Failure never belongs to them. Jung warned that unconsciousness does not make a person harmless. It makes them dangerous through projection. What they cannot face within themselves will inevitably be placed onto you. Their incompetence becomes your fault. Their anger becomes your provocation. And over time, you begin carrying conflicts that were never yours to begin with. The second type is the projection-driven personality. Jung famously observed that what disturbs us most in others often reflects something unresolved within ourselves. But for some individuals, projection is not a temporary defense. It is a permanent structure of personality. They perceive enemies everywhere, betrayal everywhere, moral failure everywhere. In truth, they are in constant conflict with their own shadow. And if you remain close to them, you will be assigned a role inside their inner drama. You will become the threat they cannot acknowledge within. Slowly, subtly, your identity is rewritten to sustain their psychological balance. The third type is the inflated ego personality. Jung considered ego inflation one of the most destructive inner states a human being can enter. These individuals identify not with their humanity, but with power, intellect, morality, or status. They do not relate, they dominate.
In their presence, conversation becomes a competition rather than an exchange. Your ideas are diminished, your autonomy quietly eroded. Ego-inflated individuals cannot tolerate equality because equality threatens the fragile structure that holds their self-image together. They require admirers, subordinates, or adversaries, never partners. The fourth type is the emotionally vampiric individual. This is not metaphorical. Jung observed that certain people unconsciously depend on the emotional energy of others to maintain inner stability. Your anxiety stimulates them. Your guilt anchors them. Your confusion reassures them. They provoke emotional reactions not out of cruelty, but necessity. And prolonged exposure to such a dynamic often leads to exhaustion, self-doubt, and a gradual loss of emotional boundaries. You are not strengthening them by staying, you are depleting yourself. The fifth type is the person who refuses responsibility for their inner life. Jung believed psychological maturity begins the moment a person accepts responsibility for their own emotional and mental state. Those who refuse this task remain psychologically dependent, regardless of age or intellect. They unconsciously recruit others to regulate their emotions, make decisions for them, or absorb the consequences of their actions. If you assume this role long enough, your own direction begins to dissolve. You are no longer living your life, you are managing theirs. The sixth and final type is the most subtle, the person who fears your individuation. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, destabilizes unhealthy psychological systems. Some individuals are threatened by your growth not because it harms them, but because it exposes what they have avoided within themselves. They may discourage you gently, undermine you quietly, or question your path out of concern. But beneath this lies a deeper anxiety. Your transformation removes the psychological comfort they derived from your stagnation. It is essential to understand this clearly. Jung did not teach avoidance as rejection. He taught discernment. You are not obligated to remain psychologically entangled with individuals who refuse consciousness. Distance in this context is not abandonment, it is boundary formation. And boundaries are not acts of hostility, they are acts of mental hygiene. To recognize these patterns is not to become colder, but clearer. And clarity is what allows the psyche to remain intact. Now that you are aware of these 6 dangerous dynamics, consider this carefully. Which relationships in your life expand your consciousness and which quietly consume it? The answer to that question will determine not only the quality of your relationships, but the shape of your inner world itself.